everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are talking about my spring TBR, so what I'm going to be reading in March, April, and May, hopefully, if I actually follow my TBR. But first, we're gonna just do a little reflecting on my winter TBR and see what I did or didn't read and what ratings I gave them real quick. So, first up, the books that were on my winter TBR were The Broken Crown by Michelle West, A Dance with Fate by Julia Marillier, Blanca y Roja by Anna Marie McLemore, The Weight of the Stars by Kay Ankrum, The Half-Drowned King by Linnea Hartsoiker, and Sherwood by Megan Spooner, which was the poll pick that you guys voted for. And then in the order that I read them or didn't read them, I'll tell you the star ratings. So the first one that I read was The Half-Drowned King by Linnea Hartsoiker, which I think I gave 3 stars and I have already unhauled. Then I read A Dance with Fate by Julia Marillier, which I gave 5 stars and was one of my favorite books of 2020. Then I read The Weight of the Stars by Kay Ankrum, which I gave 4.5 stars. And last is Blanca y Roja by Anna Marie McLemore, which I gave 2.5 stars. Which means I didn't read 2 of the books that were on the TBR, which were The Broken Crown and Sherwood. And Sherwood I'm going to be putting back onto my winter, or onto my spring TBR, because this is the one that everyone voted for, so I want to make sure I read it soon because I didn't get to it in winter. So it's going on my spring TBR so that I will finish it soon and review it for you. Okay, so now we're going to get onto the actual spring TBR, and I'm just going to start off with the biggest book, which is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is on my list of top 10 books to read in 2021, so I'm hoping to get to it early this year instead of putting it off because it is such a large book. But it is a standalone adult high fantasy that has dragons and warring religious factions, and I've just heard such incredible things about it. I'm really interested to try this author again because I read her book The Bone Season a long time ago and I was like very lukewarm about it, but that is a different genre from this, so I'm really interested to try something new from this author and in a different genre from what I've read from her before. Then next up I have The Palace of Illusions by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, which is a retelling of the Mahabharata, which is a ancient Indian epic, and I have just really been wanting to read this. I've heard amazing things about the writing and the characters. Yeah, so I really want to get to this one soon, and I'm really interested to see a retelling of the Mahabharata. Then I have People of the Book by Geraldine Brooks, and this one I'm really not sure what I'm going to think of it, so I'm less so reading this because I think I'm going to love it and more because I just want to know what I think of it, good or bad. This is one of the books that I picked up when I was more actively seeking out books about books, because I have seen this on some recommendations for that kind of book. And I also specifically want to read this in the spring because the book that this book is about is a Haggadah. And a Haggadah is kind of like the prayer book that is used for a Passover Seder, and Passover is in the spring. This year it's going to be like end of March, beginning of April. And I would like to read this either around or during Passover because I have not been able to motivate myself to read this book yet, and so if I give myself a specific time period because it's thematic, then I'm hoping that that will kind of motivate me to finally pick up this book. So this is, I think, historical fiction that follows maybe a few different timelines, and so it starts in 1996. A rare book expert is offered the job of a lifetime: analysis and conservation of a mysterious, beautifully illuminated Hebrew manuscript created in 15th century Spain and recently saved from destruction. And so it follows this Haggadah through different time periods as all these like different people have worked to like save it and keep it safe. So I think that it has the potential to be interesting, but I also just really don't know what I'm going to think of it. It does have a really beautiful cover though, so I'm hoping to read this around Passover this year, hopefully finally read this because it's been on my shelf for a while. Next up I have The Wicker King by Kay Ankrum. This is a YA contemporary about 2 friends, and I think it talks a lot about mental health and mental illness, and I know that one of the characters, as they are struggling with mental illness, the pages get darker and darker as their like mindset gets darker and darker. So I think that sounds really interesting, and as I said earlier, I recently read The Weight of the Stars by Kay Ancrum and really enjoyed it, so I'm really interested to read more from her. So yeah, I really don't know that much more about this particular book, but I really enjoyed something else from this author, so I'm excited to read it. Then I have The Rune Lords by David Farland. This was on my list of top 6 books that I want to reread in 2021 because I really want to try and reread more books this year, at least the first book in a couple of different series. So this is the first book in the Rune Lords series. I think newer editions of this book have been renamed The Sum of All Men, but I remember really liking this series. I think it does have some kind of like nature magic in it, because in this world, the earth is like wounded in some way, and they are waiting for the Earth King to come heal the world, because the Earth King is this kind of mythical figure that they're waiting to come back, but people don't really know that much about him. But also in this world, there's a really interesting magic system that is based on runes that you can like brand someone with a rune and transfer attributes from one person to another. And in this world, there is a tyrant who has accumulated so many of these attributes that he's become like superhuman practically, and he's kind of trying to take over the world. So those are like the two main parts of the plot that I remember from this, but I remember really liking it, and I would love to get to at least this first book in the series this spring. And then of course we have Sherwood by Megan Spooner, which is back on my TBR. It was on the winter TBR I just talked about, but it's back on for spring. So then I also have a couple of other books that are maybe more unofficially on my TBR. There really isn't much of a difference between what is officially or unofficially on my TBR, because I make these TBRs and then I just kind of do whatever I want and hope for the best. But unofficially on my TBR, I have the Truth series by Dawn Cook. I am currently reading The First Truth by Dawn Cook, and this is a reread series for me. This was also on that list of top 6 books to reread, and I had just the first book on that list, but I am currently reading it right now. I don't know, maybe 40% of the way in, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving this reread, and now I really, really want to reread the rest of the series. So I'm thinking I'm gonna just binge read this series. I have the audiobooks for them, and they're not very long books to begin with, so this is kind of unofficially on my TBR also, because I'm having such a good time with this first book. I think I'm going to binge read the whole series. Then another reread that is maybe on the horizon is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, the first book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. And of course, this is inspired by the new Netflix show that's going to be coming out in April. I have only recently gotten excited about the TV show. Like, I've known of it and kind of casually been keeping tabs on the updates that I've seen online, but haven't gotten too excited about it. But then the teaser trailer came out recently, and that actually got me really excited about the show. Like, it looks like it's actually going to be really good, and the production quality looks good, and the actors look like they're going to be great. I'm excited now. Like, I'm actually really excited for the show. So I really want to reread this first book at least. I don't think I'm going to have to go beyond the first book before the show starts, because I'm assuming the first season is only going to cover the first book. But yeah, so I'd like to at least reread the first book this spring. Also, I recently got my mom to start reading this series in anticipation of the show, which is very exciting. My dad read this series a couple of years ago, I think, and my mom is reading it now, and I want to reread it so that I can like actually talk to her about the books and the show when it comes out. So I'm hoping to get to this before the show comes out at the end of April. So now we are on to the part where I have 3 books that you guys can vote to add to my TBR, and this time I decided to go with some shorter books because I have some longish books on this list and a few extra ones that are on this TBR, so I'm adding a short book to my TBR, and also some sci-fi books because I think that I want to read more sci-fi. So the first one that I have is Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi. I've heard incredible things about this, and it is about a girl named Ella who has a thing, which seems like she can kind of see the future, but then also it says that she has the ability to wreck cities in her hands, and it says that it is rooted in the hope that can live in anger. Riot Baby is as much an intimate family story as a global dystopian narrative. Yeah, and as I said, I've heard incredible things about this one. Then the second book that I have is The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. This takes place on a planet that is completely covered in forest, and there is an alien race that lives there that is by nature very peaceful. But then humans come to this planet and I think enslave the people who live there and start like cutting down trees and stripping the planet of its resources, and then the alien race who lives on this planet has to kind of decide that if they should defend themselves and go against their nature, and I think they decide to do that to protect their planet. So yeah, I've heard some really great things about this, and I'm assuming it has a lot to do with trees. And then the last one that I have is Lagoon by Nnedi Okorafor. I've read a couple of other things from Nnedi Okorafor and enjoyed a lot of them. And I am wanting to just read more of her work. This one, I think, takes place on Earth, but it is like a first contact kind of sci-fi where there are these aliens that crash land into the ocean and are first discovered by a marine biologist, a rapper, and a troubled soldier, and it kind of brings them together as they're dealing with this like alien first contact. So once again, the options are Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi, The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin, and Lagoon by Nnedi Okorafor. I have a feeling that Riot Baby is going to win, but we'll see. So there will be a link to the poll in the description, or you can just go to the community tab on my channel and the poll will be there. It'll be up for a couple days after this video goes up, and then I will post which book won the poll. So I'm excited to see what you guys pick. Let me know if you have read any of these books that are on my TBR, what you're excited to see me read, or what you have loved. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!